Everybody, the Simple Handicap for Friday, September 27th. Thank you for making me a part of your morning. We made it to the end of NFL week number 4, and we're going to get started with the final market rundown for everything you need to know about Sunday and Monday's games coming up. Let's start off with the Saints on the road at the Atlanta Falcons. Falcons, 2.5-point favorites for the majority across the board. BetOnline, 1 minus 125. FanDuel, 1 minus 20. FanDuel, I would consider the lowest price on the board when you're looking at that vig. For BetOnline to be where they are, a lot closer to 2.5 minus 105 than it is anything else. So we see a bit of a pricing discrepancy, not as big as it appears on the board, albeit a bit of back and forth. I still like the Falcons in this game. We released them at a better price than is currently on the board, but I would still look that way at minus 2.5. Total from 46.5 all the way down to 42, and we are seeing 41 showing at Pinnacle this morning. WPH at 41.5, mirroring a bit of a split at other books, but that is a total that continues to drop down. The Atlanta Falcons news getting pretty settled at this point, as we know Caleb McGarry is likely going to miss this game as he's not participated at practice. We know that Drew Dahlman earlier in the week, the center, went on injured reserve and is going to miss time. The concerning news, perhaps, was Bijan Robinson finding the injury report yesterday out of nowhere, waiting to figure out exactly what was going on with him, but just one of the many names that popped up on the injury report today, which was a little bit surprising to see, is a lot of these guys that popped up today were active on Wednesday, and we see a bit of a wonky league-wide injury report in terms of things that came out today. Pittsburgh Steelers on the road at the Indianapolis Colts. Pittsburgh still a 1.5-point favorite across the board. Total in this game still 40 from left to right across the screen. Teaser window with the Colts being teased up seems to be closing as Indianapolis money continues to leak slowly into the market. Do like them teased up. Did the video with Sam P. Have the Colts as a side. Also have the Colts in a teaser leg for that video where, after last week, in dire need of a win or two coming up this week. Jacksonville on the road at the Houston Texans. This one continues to be a bit surprising to me. One of the bigger betting groups in the NFL sided with Houston a little bit earlier in the week at 5.5. This got all the way up to 7, and we have seen money coming back. Now, Joe Mixon missing this game in all likelihood is not overly surprising considering the injury that he is dealing with. Dameon Pierce looks like he is a true 50-50 shot to be able to play, but the bigger news is Tank Dell, who was listed later last night as being unlikely to play in this game. And then Nico Collins, the surprise news, shows up as well. Going to be very key to see what's going on with Nico Collins. If you take Collins and Dell both out of this game and you don't have Mixon in the backfield, that becomes a big problem. And so the Collins injury is going to be the one you have to watch today. If he logs a limited, there's a definite chance that he is good to go on Sunday. But it sounds rather ominous for Tank Dell with that designation that came out awfully early. And so that is a very surprising turn of events with the Texans wide receiver group. For Jacksonville, it is still Evan Ingram, very unlikely to play in this game. You're also looking at injuries to Cam Robinson, Anton Harrison, the left and right tackle, and Ola Kuhn on the defensive side, one of the top linebackers in the league, is listed as doubtful on the ESPN depth charts. That's a telltale sign of what's to come from Friday on the injury report at practice. So keep an eye on those as well. But obviously Nico Collins is going to have a big impact for a lot of folks. Number-wise, interesting to see this come back. Again, it's the 4th week in the season. We're talking about two-way action like we've never had on a pod, especially early in the season, where things do move a lot more. This has just been pretty crazy to see how much back and forth there has been against some of the bigger groups. And these aren't even public releasing groups either. And so just, again, a surprise to see this get back to where it is currently. Minnesota on the road at the Green Bay Packers, starting to leak towards 3 for Green Bay. For the most part, this has been 2.5 for the chunk of the week as there's uncertainty with Jordan Love. Boy, Rob Dombrowski, the reporter for the Green Bay Packers, he must be loving this because they're kind of letting him in to take videos and do whatever he wants, and it seems very selective. Last week, he was the guy that was like the forefront champion of Love is back at practice. Here's videos of him. Here's what he's doing. Like, this is looking great. Never plays, right? But the stir and the emotion was there. And then you're watching the Twitter feed come through today. You're like, my goodness, Rob, like, he had a video because there's now optimism that Love is going to play. And the video was phrased along the lines of, here is Love not participating in this specific drill. And when you're not participating in a drill, you get the limited designation. I don't know exactly, nor does anybody, what's going on behind the scenes for the Packers here. It has been kind of the understood case that Love is 65 to 70% likely to play in this game. He was labeled on Monday as being limited every day at practice this week. So that was the expectation. But there was almost a need to prove it on Thursday, which was, I just found it odd. And we're probably going to see it today because LaFleur is certainly putting Flores in a bit of a game planning bind. I mean, the two teams know each other very well. So it's not like it's a complete curveball, perhaps like he was trying to do with Malik Willis when he's playing the Titans out of division, or it just feels different. Same thing with the Colts. I mean, if Love plays, this can't be 3. It'll go above 3. They'll be back and forth. We may not get that confirmation today. Just that feels like the way that this is trending. I talked about on the Wednesday preview, I was looking at Green Bay there. I really like their defense and the way that they are trending. You're probably stuck waiting now that this is on top of the 3 and trending up, but this is certainly going to move above 3 if Love is ruled in and good to go, but we may need to wait until later to see that officially happen. Cincinnati on the road at the Carolina Panthers. It was crazy to me that this got to a flat 4. It is now back to 4.5. Carolina has some injuries. The one that's going to catch a lot of people's attention is Deontay Johnson, who was not practicing yesterday. He had an interview after practice, and he caught up with media. The storms from the hurricane affected the Panthers' grass field. He didn't want to practice on the grass because he is dealing with a groin injury. He said in the interview that he is good to go for Sunday. So that was more a precautionary scenario where he held himself out because of the wet conditions and didn't want to go. There was another tweet that said the team expects him back today. We'll see, but that's obviously massive news with Adam Thielen on the injured reserve. He got placed there earlier this week. It is a groin injury and designation for Deontay Johnson, so keep an eye on it, but all expectations are that he's going to be back. I'm looking at the defensive line for Carolina, which is incredibly weak to begin with. Shai Tuttle, the nose tackle, has not practiced, nor has Ashawn Robinson. Now, you never underestimate the importance of a good nose tackle, and you take Tuttle out of the middle, that's going to give the Bengals a bit of an out, that they don't need it, but it's certainly going to be something that they can lean on if he is not in there. This is a soft run defense to begin with. You take the nose out, and then all of a sudden you take a good edge rusher relative to what else is on the roster. That's a big blow to the defense. So those two guys are likely to play a bigger factor as we see Johnson back at practice. Damian Lewis, the left guard, also dealing with an injury as well for Carolina that looks like it may keep him out of the game. LA Rams on the road at the Chicago Bears. Bears still a 3-point favorite. It's been going back and forth all week. Talked a lot on the podcast this week about how I like the Bears. At 3, you're probably waiting to see if there's some Rams money that comes back and brings this off of the 3. But certainly positions have been taken by bettors and groups on both sides of this game, including us as well earlier in the week. Total in this game still holding steady at 41. Denver on the road at the New York Jets. Jets are still 7.5-point favorites across the board. Total 39.5. You look at 7.5 with such a short total for the Jets at home. This is going to be a very popular teaser leg for the New York Jets. And so if you're looking at some of these teasers on the classic Wong side, then this is probably one that is definitely getting your attention. Talked about the Indianapolis Colts being teased up. Talked about them being paired with the Buccaneers yesterday. And this looks like a number where you're probably pretty comfortable playing a teaser on this one as well if you want to. Philadelphia on the road at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. No practice for Lane Johnson. No practice for Smith. No practice for Brown. 3 key offensive pieces. DNP Wednesday and Thursday. Bye on deck. I'm going to be very surprised personally if anything changes today for those 3 guys. I would expect we see them ruled out later today. And I would expect this number, which is now 1.5, to continue to trickle in. I think those are massive injuries that are going to limit what the Eagles can and want to do on offense, and if they are ruled out, it hits the screen. I think we definitely see movement. Vita Vea implies that he is going to be good to go. Does not look like Cansey nor Winfield Jr. are going to be able to play, but when you think about how the Philadelphia Eagles are going to shift into a very run-focused team without wide receiver number 1 and number 2, you get the big run stopper in the back, in the middle of the defensive line, a massive boost to the Buccaneers defense. So definitely keep an eye on those, but I think the writing is on the wall here for what's going on with the Eagles and their injury situation. Washington on the road at the Arizona Cardinals. Got down as low as 3 minus 114. There was a slight buyback on Arizona, and then later yesterday, there was a little bit of money in the evening that came in and trickled in on Washington and pushed us down. So we're seeing some 3.5 even monies on the board this morning. We're seeing Chris at 3.5 minus 105, Circa at 3.5 even money. It has been consistently Washington money all week. For Arizona, does not look overly positive for Trey McBride, and Marvin Harrison is becoming a key name to watch as well, as he has been limited both Thursday and Friday. It sounds like it is a soft tissue injury that he is dealing with, and so participation on Friday could absolutely impact his availability on Sunday. So McBride dealing with the concussion protocol. We'll get more news on him today, but late tweets yesterday implied that he is looking more pessimistic about playing. And then that Marvin Harrison Jr. injury seems to be something that you actually have to watch, not necessarily like a Deontay Johnson scenario. And so that could be massive for Arizona, who definitely needs both of those guys out to have their offense going. You take out McBride, you can kind of play around it. But if you're also dealing with Marvin Harrison after back-to-back limited practices, not being able to play, that would be interesting. Now, I wouldn't be scared away if it is a third limited participation for Harrison. If you see 3 limiteds, that's about a 75% success rate in playing that week. It would really be the DNP that scares everyone away here, and that would absolutely have an impact on this number. But I would expect it's either limited or full for Harrison today at practice, and it'll be McBride who is the name that probably has a little bit more doubt surrounding it. So that is how the Cardinals scenario wraps up. I could see if this trickles down and gets back to that 3 minus 15 or a flat 3 and Harrison is in, there may be a couple buys on Arizona to push this up back towards 3.5 and 4 if it gets that low. I think we're at the peak here for what you're going to see on a number for Washington. New England on the road at the San Francisco 49ers. 49ers still a 10.5 point favorite across the board. Kittle says he is good to go for Sunday. Deebo Samuel was back at practice. When he was hurt in week 2, it was estimated to be a 2 to 3 week injury. Him coming back this week would be at the short end of the timeline. I get the feeling, based on how it's being handled, he's probably going to sit for this game. I don't have a strong opinion on that, but that's just the way that it looks like it is trending based on some of the reports and some of the tweets. If he is in and you have the Kittle confirmation later today, that would obviously move this number. I do think there's probably potentially a bet coming on the 49ers to push this up to 11. That may be one of those later weekend stances that is taken, but the hesitation with that would be we're just seeing these bigger dogs cover at a ridiculous rate in the short total. So there may be disagreement with that, but it does, just looking at it with the injuries and how it can fall, feel like we might see some intrigue in the 49ers, but the only disagreement with that would be just guys backing these bigger dogs, which we're absolutely seeing in the market. Cleveland on the road at Las Vegas. This one, to me, has been a stay away all week, but now I really and genuinely don't know what to make of it. Devontae Adams pops up on the injury report. Max Crosby pops up on the injury report out of nowhere. We know earlier in the week we heard Antonio Pierce talking business decisions. Nothing really came of that. We haven't seen who was part of potentially quitting, who was not giving effort, who was not playing. I don't know what's going on there. And some commentary that came out about it was mentioning the fact that Max Crosby last year went through a lot of weeks where he had similar practice limitations to this and still ended up playing. So that's something to keep in mind. The Adams injury, just like Harrison, just like Nico Collins, it's just a weird week where a lot of these guys pop up on Thursday, where typically it's the Wednesday rest day. Now we're seeing Thursday being treated different. I don't know. It's a strange week in that regard. For Cleveland, there's just injuries all over the place. This Myles Garrett scenario where he has both feet hurt and he says he's playing through another injury, it's crazy to me that they're not shutting him down, but he says that he is going to be limited or miss practice Wednesday, Thursday, get in a limited session on Friday, and be good to go. Let's see. Offensive line just seems like major question marks everywhere as Willis, Bitonio, Conklin all hit the injury report. Bitonio is going to be good to go. He was asked in an interview yesterday where he expects to play, and he said, if I have to guess, it's left guard, but I don't know. And that just kind of indicates when you're looking at this with Willis, Conklin, DeJuan Jones, James Hudson, I mean, everyone on the offensive line is hurt for Cleveland. It's such a strange game. It's still 2 across the board for the Raiders. The total's down to 37. I don't know what to make of this one, and it's a stay away from me. There's just a lot of odd reports going on for both of these teams. Kansas City on the road at the LA Chargers. We don't have the official ruling out of Slater or Alt, but we did have a glimpse of what the offensive line was at practice that was playing with the number 1 offense and was getting the majority of the reps in the open practice, and it was ugly. I mean, you're looking at Sorrell, Johnson, Bozeman, Pipkins, Soller, like just names you don't hear and names you don't recognize. And you take Slater and Alt out of this offensive line, and I mean, it is so thin. Now, things continue to look like they're trending in the right direction for Justin Herbert as he sounds more optimistic. This number, if he's confirmed in, is going to come down a little bit further. I can't believe the Chargers may put him out there, and I'm just surprised to see that there's a willingness to back the Chargers in this game, given how limited the offense has been as this injury situation does not improve over the course of the week. We like Kansas City. I still like Kansas City sitting here this morning at the 7, but keep that in mind, as I've said all week. Just wait and see the Herbert news. You might get a better number than this. Buffalo on the road at the Baltimore Ravens. Ravens a 2.5-point favorite across the board. The one exception for that is at BetCris. There was a lot of concerns about the offensive line and a lot of guys missing practice on Wednesday. A lot of those concerns alleviated with almost everybody returning back to practice. We'll have to keep a little bit of an eye on that one later today, but I think what is going to happen in this game is we see things cleared up for Linderbaum. We see things cleaned up for Voorhees. We know the right side of the line is already good to go. Once everything's final and confirmed, I get the impression that the same group that went in and took a big stance on Baltimore last week is probably going to look at playing them again here at less than 3. I don't know if it's going to push it to 3, but I do think we see a bit of intrigue from the Baltimore Ravens. I was texting with another bettor as well. He said he was already on Baltimore. He was willing to risk going around those injuries, speculating that they would be good, and has already taken that position. Doesn't seem like, despite the Bills being a very popular team at the moment, despite getting a very big bump up in the ratings, both aggregate and market ratings, it seems like there's a pretty strong opinion still waiting out there on the Baltimore Ravens from the same guys that were betting them last week that took a strong stance there that we talked about here on the podcast. So that'll probably maybe show itself later this morning. We'll see. But that's just how I'm kind of reading it and what I'm hearing from a few folks as well. Tennessee on the road at the Miami Dolphins. Dolphins still a 1-point favorite across the board. Everything sounds like Tyler Huntley is going to be the starting quarterback for the Dolphins. Were some promising reports. You got the Tyreek Hill stamp of endorsement too from the press interview. So it does sound like it will be Huntley for the Dolphins. I don't know if he is officially confirmed. There's going to be much of an upgrade here, if any. I think we've already seen this leak from Tennessee 1 to Miami 1, kind of a small adjustment for that. Perhaps there's more confidence in him with the market, and this pushes up to like a 2 minus 10, or maybe at like an extreme 2.5. But other than that, I don't think we're seeing too much more intrigue in Miami if the Huntley news is confirmed. Seattle on the road at the Detroit Lions. It was actually a positive day for the Lions injuries. As you're looking on the defensive side, there was concern about Aleem McNeil. There was concern about Alex Anzalone. There was concern about Brian Branch. All of them back at practice. Branch is still dealing in the concussion protocol. Part of the protocol, which is 5 steps, is returning to practice and being present and participating. You need to keep progressing day by day in order to be able to play. He does get the benefit of the extra day. So the fact that he is back at day one of practice and he's on the field participating, that's a pretty good indication that he has a decent chance of playing in this game. We heard from Anzalone. He said that he is going to be playing in this game as well. So the two injuries that are kind of left for the Lions are Sam Laporta and Frank Ragnow. We get the news from Campbell, who made it sound like Ragnow had died, said he was putting him down. He's going to miss. So you have him ruled out. So the Lions, without their center, that's settled. To me, the last one you have to look at is Sam Laporta. That's the name that you're really watching from the injury front, as it does look like it's trending well for Brian Branch. For the Seattle Seahawks, still waiting today for confirmation on what we're going to get from Hankins, Williams, and Byron Murphy up front on the defensive line. That will do it for me today. Again, just kind of quick stances that I have to recap everything that's been going on this week. Colts at 1.5 was something we've talked about a lot. That in a teaser with the Buccaneers. Buccaneers on the side. Talked about that at 2.5. Still available at 2. If you haven't yet gone in and played that, we have the Bears at less than 3. That is now at 3. Would still be a lean. Similar scenario with the Packers. Like them at 2.5. There's still 2.5 out there. It would be a lean at 3. You're waiting on that Jordan Love news to come through as well. If you want to go and extend that teaser a little bit, you could look at the Jets. I haven't done anything with the Jets teaser leg, as my initial lean in this week was towards Denver, but there was the release from a competing service that brought the Broncos in, so I'm not going to end up probably touching that, even though it's a pretty enticing teaser leg. I'm intrigued by the Ravens on Sunday night. I've not done anything with them yet, but that is something that I also wrote up earlier in the week, and it just numbers-wise never quite came through. And, of course, there were those injuries that we were kind of sitting on as well. So don't think we're going to have any further releases between now and Sunday, but that's just kind of a wrap-up on some of my stances. Had a few more over on the full preview that aired Wednesday morning. If you're watching this morning on YouTube, you can head over and find that here on the channel. If you're on Apple or Spotify, the episode is also in the podcast feed. If you have been able to listen to it already, you can go back and go game by game as well. Appreciate everybody for stopping by the podcast this week. If you've enjoyed it and you're listening and watching on YouTube, the subscribe button is down below. Would appreciate a thumbs up too. If you're on Apple or Spotify, you have a second this morning to leave a rating. You found something useful this week, you can pause the podcast, scroll down. I really appreciate any of the ratings and commentary that you have to leave if you have an extra second on top of that as well. Have a fantastic Friday. Have a fantastic weekend. We'll be back with you guys after the late games on Sunday conclude, just before Sunday Night Football between the Bills and the Ravens. We'll try to get that one started around 4:20 p.m. Pacific time so we can finish that up before the big Bills and Ravens game. And then guess what, guys? Next week, we got the bye weeks coming back. Quicker episodes. We'll shave off about 5 to 6 minutes. We'll get you started on your day a little bit earlier as well. So we'll have a little less talking next week and a lot more games to spend a little bit more time on, at least to dive in a little bit deeper. All right, that's it for me. Enjoy your Friday. We'll chat to you Sunday afternoon.